Hello, my name is Alejandra and I will talk about biology, its fields in action, and its branches. First of all, biology has allowed us to know which is the composition of the material that help pass the genetic information from one living being to another, that these are called genetics. Then biology studies the interaction between the living beings as a cooperative or aggressive, and um, phenomena like parasitism or mutualism. Then we have the branches of the biology that are anatomy, anthropology, biomedicine, biochemistry, zoology, virology, etc. But this list is not enough because uh, every day we acquire some knowledge about life. How did life originate in the planet? Well, we still do not have a concrete explanation or idea that help us to know that. But for many years, there have been many theories like it was generated in the volcanoes, in the oceans, it was generated spontaneously, that a supreme being create the life, etc. But the truth until now is that everything that has previously happened gave rise to a system was based on the DNA and the RNA capable of storing the information to create various molecules that can change their modifications. Then we have the characteristics of the living beings that are 8. The first is the organization, that life in the earth for many years they have been organized by levels where the lower ones give sustenance to the superiors. Then we have the genetic code. The third characteristic is to respond to a stimuli like sound, temperature, light, and chemical substance, and others. Then we have the homeostasis. That one example of this is the regulation of the corporal temperature to maintain vital functions. Then we have the metabolism, that involves the destruction of the molecules, that is the catabolism, or to create new molecules, that is the anabolism. Then we have the growth, that is to extend or increase the volume of the living beings. The seventh characteristic is the reproduction, that is divided in 3 types. The first type is the asexual reproduction, the second is the sexual reproduction, and the third is the parasexual reproduction, that is divided in 3: the conjugation, the transduction, and the transformation. And the last characteristic is the adaptation, ability, and evolution. That in this category you need to adapt to your environment or die. And we have what is a cell. The cell is a unit of life, and there are 2 types: the prokaryotic cell, that are the ones that do not have the nucleus, and some of its components are the plasma membrane, the cell wall, the nucleoid, the ribosomes, and the prokaryotic compartments like chromosomes, carbosomes, the magnetosomes, etc. Then we have the second type, that is the eukaryotic cell, that is divided into: the first is the animal cell, that some of its components are membrane, the nucleus, the rogue endoplasmatic reticulum, a smooth endoplasmatic reticulum, the Golgi apparatus, the lysosomes, the peroxisomes, the mitochondria, etc. Then we have the plant cell or the vegetable cell, that some of its components is the cell wall, the plastids like chloroplast, leucoplast, chromoplast, etc.
Hello, my name is Sofia Jaramillo and I'm going to talk to you about the history of the microscope and the cell. First of all, the microscope was likely invented by Zacharias Janssen. It was 3x and 9x, about like the zoom, and it had an objective and an eyepiece that conformed the microscope. Later on 1665, Robert Hooke used it for scientific purposes and introduced the term cell, lightning that was a candle, and it had a magnifying of 50x. Later, Anton van Leeuwenhoek developed a new technique for the lenses with about 2000x and published his results in 1668. Robert Hooke observed the bark of the cork and introduced the word cell from Latin cellulae, that means little chambers. Anton van Leeuwenhoek observed spermatozoa, protozoa, and bacteria. Now I'm going to talk about the history of the cell. Schwann and Schneider introduced the first postulate of the cell theory, that is, the cell is the elemental unit of all plants and animals. In 1831, Robert Brown discovered the nucleus. Later on, in 1839, Johannes Evangelista introduced the term protoplasm to describe the cytoplasm. After that, in 1857, von Collider identified the mitochondria. In 1858, Rudolf Virchow mentioned that all cells come from pre-existing cells. Moving on, I'm going to talk about the cell theory that was created or invented by Schwann, Schneider, and Virchow. The first postulate mentions that all living things are made up of cells, like plants and animals. The number 2 says omnis cellula ex cellula, that means that every cell comes from a pre-existing cell. Postulate number 3 mentions that the cell is the physiological unit of life, and the fourth, and basically the last but not exactly, says that the cell contains the hereditary information. Now we can add a fifth postulate that mentions that the disease begins in the cell.
Okay, so hello, my name is Alex. I'm going to explain the passive and active methods to the way that the body transports nutrients and cells. And so there's two ways that the body works, and one is the passive method, that is when no energy or ATP is expanded, so the molecules move from a higher to a low concentration. An example of this is when you breathe and then there is a high concentration of oxygen, so the oxygen passes to low concentrations of the blood, and the active method is when the cells move from a low to a higher concentrations, and that happens with the cells flow against the current and energy or ATP is expanded. Okay, so an example for the active transport method, it will be like diffusion, and it will consist, or a good example will be the pump or something, because we are expending ATP energy to make a lower concentration of something to get more higher or more concentrate. This passive and active process happens at different levels. The first one and the smallest one will be the cells such as DNA, mitochondria, etc. Then will be the tissues like the muscle tissues, connective tissues. Then will be the organs such as the liver, the heart. And then it will be the organ systems like the digestive systems, that are a few organs that work together to perform a task. And then the last level will be the organism.
Hi, my name is Rincón, and I'm going to talk about homeostasis and organ systems. Homeostasis refers to any process that living things use to actively maintain fairly stable conditions necessary for survival. This process can be external or internal. For example, the human body uses a number of processes to control its temperature. So in response, that is why we start sweating. The term homeostasis was coined by the physician Walter Canning in 1928 to describe the regulation of this internal environment. Humans depend heavily on our own body to protect us against several changes in temperature, water levels, the salt balance, and hormones. Preserving the balance of functions requires the participation of a series of factors that are responsible for it, and are the variable, the sensor or receiver, the integrator, the point, and the effector. The response of the circuit can be stopped once the reaches the set point and the effector, what is called negative feedback, and it regulates most of the functions in our body. Or it can be increased elsewhere, which is called positive feedback. Now I'm going to explain organ systems. An organ system is a group of anatomical structures that work together to perform a specific function or task. Our body could not function without the cooperation of all of its organ systems. The human body is composed of 11 organ systems. The integumentary system, which is the set of organs that form the external covering of the body, which is the skin. The muscular system, that is the one that produces the movement. The skeletal system, that is the one that includes all the joints in the body. The nervous system, that transmits signals to all the different parts of the body. The circulatory system, that consists of blood and the heart and also the blood vessels. The lymphatic system, that helps us get rid of body toxins. The respiratory system, that is responsible for taking in the oxygen and also expelling the carbon dioxide. The endocrine system, that produces the hormones. The urinary systems, where all the waste in the body is eliminated. The reproductive system, that has the purpose of procreating, and the digestive system, that is made up of the intestinal tract.
Hi, I'm Rosario, and I'm going to talk about health and sickness, balanced health, and healthy lifestyle. Definition of health according to the World Health Organization is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. So from that we can infer that a disease is the state of incomplete social, mental, or physical well-being. We have to know the factors that intervene in health and in which percentage they do it. First we have the genetics with 20%, environment with 20% as well, public health with 10%, and lifestyle with 50%, which proves that lifestyle has greater importance than the other factors. Now it's time to talk about adolescent health. The adolescence is the stage between 11 and 19 years old that is characterized by the transition from childhood to adulthood, which implies physical, cognitive, and psychosocial changes. We have to understand the principal changes in adolescents to know that they are healthy and well developing. So the hormonal ones are the ones that help them to start their sexual maturity. The hormones that predominate in women are estrogens, while in men are androgens. The sexual maturity is divided in primary and secondary characteristics. The primary ones consist in the basic organs responsible for human reproduction. The secondary ones are the ones that the physiological signs of sexual maturity are related to sexual organs. Now it's time to talk about the cognitive maturity, that the brain develops and culminates approximately at 21 years. And as the brain develops, cognition also develops. And cognition is a set of processes or mental structures that are related to awareness and knowledge. Now is the structural and functional changes. The first ones are related to the working memory that helps them to face problems and take decisions for solving them. Functional changes are the ones that are related to the processes that help to obtain, manage, and retain information such as learning, reasoning, and memory. So we have to know that we have to have a balance between these aspects to know that the adolescent is healthy and doesn't have illnesses. Now we have to talk about healthy lifestyles. So as already mentioned, a lifestyle is the most significant factor that intervenes in health. We have 7 behaviors that leads to health. The first one, to sleep between 7 and 8 hours. The second one, to eat breakfast every day. The third one, to eat 3 meals a day. The fourth, to maintain body weight in acceptable limits. The fifth, to practice physical activity regularly. The sixth, to don't consume or moderate the consumption of alcohol. And finally, the seventh, to don't smoke. Thanks for listening.